All right, let's jump straight into this explainer. I want you to drop right into May 6th, 1937, at the Lakehurst Naval Air Station in New Jersey. The weather, absolutely terrible. The sky is completely overcast, you've got these heavy, menacing clouds, and really strong, unpredictable winds. Down below, there's this massive crowd of spectators and cameramen staring up at this technological marvel that just crossed the Atlantic Ocean. Ropes are dropped down to the crew on the ground to secure the landing, and then, out of nowhere, a loud bang echoes through the air.
In an instant, the world's largest airship, which was carrying 97 passengers and crew, is completely engulfed in flames. If you listen to the horrifying radio broadcasts from that day, the reporters were just stunned, crying out about an airship destroyed in less than half a minute. And the cameramen down on the ground? They captured this absolutely terrifying footage of the vessel collapsing into a blazing inferno right in front of the whole world.
Because here's the craziest part. It took just 34 seconds for this colossal machine to turn completely to ash. 34 seconds. I mean, in the literal blink of an eye, a triumphant feat of engineering became a smoldering wreckage. And instantly, it sparked a massive historical whodunit. Why did this happen? What exactly caused the undisputed pride of the skies to vanish in under a minute? Part 1, the pride of Germany. So before we can really investigate the crash and uncover the exact reasons why this tragedy occurred, we have to understand exactly what was lost that day. We're talking about an absolute behemoth here. At 245 meters long, you could compare its size to a modern Boeing 747. Actually, scratch that. A 747 would look tiny next to it. It was just slightly smaller than the Titanic, only 24 meters shorter, to put that into perspective. Because of this awe-inspiring size, it completely earned the title Queen of the Skies. And inside, it was literally a floating palace. We are talking about luxuries you rarely even see in modern first-class flights. Passengers had their own private sleeping rooms, a gorgeous communal dining room, and even a lounge with a lightweight grand piano. Of course, all this exclusivity came with a massive price tag. A ticket cost $700 back then, which is over $7,000 today. So this was really a playground reserved for the wealthy, which honestly made its sudden brutal destruction all the more shocking to the global public. Part 2, was it sabotage? Naturally, the world was demanding answers, so investigators had to consider every single angle, starting with the most dramatic: sabotage. Desperate for explanations, experts quickly zeroed in on 3 main possibilities. We're looking at either a deliberate bomb, a static electricity spark, or a direct lightning strike. So let's unpack that sabotage theory first. To get why sabotage was such a strong suspicion, you have to look at the intense political friction going on behind the scenes in 1930s Germany. On one side, you have Hugo Eckener, the head of the Zeppelin company. He was incredibly strict on safety and one of the very few public figures openly critical of Adolf Hitler. But on the other side, you've got the Nazi propaganda ministry, who had basically taken over. They pushed for highly relaxed safety standards and put totally unqualified political followers in charge of flights. And this tension really reached a boiling point when Hitler's propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels demanded the new airship be named after Hitler. Eckener outright refused. He named it Hindenburg instead, after the former German president. Because of this huge political defiance, rumors immediately swirled after the crash. Did anti-Nazi activists plant a bomb to destroy the pride of the regime? Or, did Hitler's own men destroy it in some convoluted plot to ruin Eckener's reputation? So, was it a political bombing? Well, the Nazi Party's interference was a real safety hazard. In fact, their rush to use the airship for propaganda caused a near crash on a previous flight because of that unqualified leadership. But despite all this intense political drama, decades of rigorous scientific investigation eventually ruled out a bomb entirely. There was zero evidence of foul play. The true cause lay elsewhere. Part 3. Sparks in storms. Okay, if we completely eliminate sabotage, we are forced to look at the sky. Specifically, the heavy clouds and aggressive winds tossing the airship around during landing. This brings us to the second theory: a massive static charge built up on the Hindenburg's metal-aluminum framework. As this giant ship pushed through the highly charged, stormy weather, an imbalance of electric charges developed on its surface. Basically, the ship turned into a giant floating battery just waiting for a release. Then, alternatively, there's Theory 3, which posits that a literal, direct lightning strike from the overcast sky hit the airship. But really, whether it was a small static spark or a massive bolt of lightning, why did it result in a fire that consumed the entire vessel in just 34 seconds?
Part 4. The real culprit. Flammable hydrogen. And this, right here, is the fatal engineering flaw that turned a routine spark into an unstoppable disaster. It's the core of why this tragedy truly happened.
See, it all comes down to the gas that kept the ship afloat. To fly, these things need to be lighter than air, and there are two primary gases for this: hydrogen and helium. Now, helium is inert. It doesn't catch fire. It is perfectly safe. Hydrogen, on the other hand, is incredibly flammable. So why on earth would the Hindenburg use dangerous hydrogen? Well, at the time, America heavily restricted the export of safe helium. Germany simply couldn't get their hands on it, which forced them to rely entirely on highly flammable hydrogen gas.
When you combine that volatile hydrogen with the stormy weather, you get the definitive verdict of the crash: a deadly chain reaction. As the ship came into land, the pilot had to make a really sharp turn to align with those erratic winds. Investigators believe this sudden, stressful maneuver snapped a structural wire, which then slashed a gas bag, causing a severe hydrogen leak. Right at that moment, the static electricity from the storm created a tiny spark on the metal frame. That single spark met the leaking hydrogen and instantly sealed the ship's fate. Those horrific images of that 34-second inferno, they completely destroyed the public's trust in airships. Traveling in a giant balloon filled with flammable gas suddenly seemed pretty terrifying. Combine that ruined reputation with the rapid advancement of standard airplanes, which were hitting speeds of 700 to 1,000 kilometers per hour compared to the sluggish 100 kilometers per hour of an airship, and yeah, the golden era of the Zeppelin was effectively over. Part 5. The future of airships. But wait, the story of lighter-than-air travel doesn't actually end in the 1940s. While airplanes have obviously dominated the skies for the last century, a really interesting shift is happening right now. Thanks to modern engineering, advanced materials, and, crucially, the easy availability of safe, non-flammable helium, these giants are making a comeback. In 2017, a UK-based company successfully ran a test flight for the Airlander 10, which is currently the world's largest aircraft, and they are estimating that by the year 2030, we could actually see the start of commercial passenger flights in these modern airships. Now, you might be wondering, why go back to slow airships when we have incredibly fast jet planes? Well, it's because of this staggering benefit. As climate change becomes a massively pressing global concern, the aviation industry is desperate for greener solutions. These modern, nearly silent airships release only 1/10, just 10%, of the carbon emissions of traditional airplanes. They also drastically reduce fuel costs and noise pollution. Plus, they fly slowly, at low altitudes, with giant windows offering just breathtaking views of the world below. It's a luxury experience that was basically lost to history over 80 years ago. So, as we look toward a greener future, armed with incredibly safe helium technology that prevents the tragedies of the past, are you